friends, it's Gina. Welcome to the Rebookery channel. I had a couple of friends ask about the types of papers that I put in my inserts that I made for my notebook. So I thought I would flip through and show you some of the papers that I used for my two inserts that I already made, and then I have another one that I'm getting ready to stitch. So this was the first insert that I used, and I just deconstructed the original Midori, or the original Traveler's Notebook, and used some of its pages, and I used the cover. Then I just added, which I've already been journaling in this one, so it might be kind of hard to show you the papers, but I just added some random pages that I have in my stash, just a lot of vintage paper. I'm a kind of a vintage paper hoarder. So this is a small calendar page from 1962. I got really lucky at an estate sale a couple of weeks ago, and I found these calendars. This lady had, well, I'm assuming it's a lady, she had probably 6 of these, and they're just from Virginia. They're just the cutest calendars, and she never wrote in them. They have beautiful pictures, so I snatched those up, and the paper is a nice, I mean, it's not really thick, but it kind of added some quirkiness in the journal. So I just took a page out of it. This is a 1978, and then added that into the journal. And it's not the same size as the rest of the pages, but I'm okay with that. I like to have a little bit of variety of my pages. So then I have just some of the white paper that came with the journal. I'm obsessed with vintage wrapping paper, so I have tons of vintage wrapping paper, and I love the pliability of it. I love how thin it is. I love the colors. There's just something about vintage wrapping paper that I'm just drawn to. So this was just a piece of vintage wrapping paper that I covered the white paper with, and that makes it thicker so that if I don't do anything to this side, if I just add paint or ink, it's not going to bleed through as much as if it was just a blank piece of paper. This is a book page, nice and thick book page from a vintage, probably a fairy tale book or a nursery rhyme book. This is a one-sided piece of pattern paper, and it's a thicker, like a cardstock, so it's not a real thin pattern paper. This is a notepad that I got. It's not very thin, like I can't see my hand through it. It has a little bit of shadowing, but it was just so pretty. And again, I could back it, and I think I did over here when I actually used the other side of it. Yeah, so on this right here, I watercolored on the back, and it didn't bleed through. So that was great. I was actually pretty impressed with that. So it was a nice thicker paper. This is graph paper that I just folded. Now you can see through this, so I'll back it or I'll do something to it. But on this side, the other side of it, I used watercolor again, and it didn't bleed through. Of course, you can't tell because I have wrapping paper and some stuff already on here, but I was pretty impressed with that paper. This is just a piece of cardstock I got from probably Michael's. This is a book page that I glued to a vintage phonics. It was like a workbook. And so in this paper is thin, and it is quite old, so it needed some stability. So I glued it to this page, and then I stitched around the side, and I left it a little bit longer so that I could have like a fold out. But I love having that it's shorter. I like having that in there, just some variety. Another white piece of paper that I can cover with any kinds of paper or stickers that I want. And then this is the cardstock, or the cover of the Traveler's Notebook, and then this was my artwork that I put. So I don't know what I'll put here. So this is the one I'm working in now. The other one, let me pull it out. I made it basically the same way. And so here's my elastic. When I put the two together, this was just some vintage elastic that I found, and I tied it off. and then I put the two together and then slide them into the elastic on the traveler's notebook. Oh, by the way, I wanted to show you this. So a lot of times when I go to estate sales, I'll find, especially because I'm always looking for office supplies, I'll find these little plastic, oh my gosh, like not really checkbook covers, but people would carry them around like back in the 70s and 80s, and you would get them from banks. And so I have a few of these, and I thought, what an awesome pocket to put in the traveler's notebook. So I did. And the cool thing is like I have my card that I use for scraping paint and stuff. I have just some photos and some papers, and then it's got a little pocket right here that I threw some more stuff in, and a little pocket right here that I threw some stuff in, and then over here is a clear pocket. So it's not as big as like a checkbook. Maybe it is a checkbook. God, it's been so long since I've written checks. Maybe it is a checkbook cover. I don't know. But it is stinking cute, and I love it because I'm using it and it's not going in the landfill. So that was something that I added to it. But okay, anyway, back to the insert. Sorry about that. I kind of got excited. So this one, I used just a piece of heavy cardstock and then backed it with, or covered it with some of my artwork scraps. Okay, so I have a stash of just papers that I have played around with. A lot of it is just scrap paper or just some random book pages. And this is just where I would practice being an artist. So I don't throw these away. I keep them because they're always great to, well, sometimes you can photocopy them and turn, oh, this one's kind of messy. But you could photocopy them and turn them into like printable art. Like I've seen some people turn them into stickers. I printed them one time and then I was like, you know what, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of what I'm doing, which is to make art using what I already have. I don't want to create more paper. So I kind of quit doing that, but I just kept a hold of these and I thought, well, I could either cut them into tags or someday put them in a book. So I have quite a few of them. And so what I thought about when I was making the Traveler's Notebook inserts is I thought these would be great. This one actually would be really good. These will be some great covers that I could put on, oh, wrapping paper, that I could put on my inserts. So that's what I did with this one right here. So this is just a piece of scrap art that I practiced on, and I don't even know when I did it, probably a couple of years ago. And then I put it on here, glued it on, and then I stitched around with my machine, added some trim, added some tags from an estate sale. Oh, actually, no, this was from a thrift store that I went to last weekend. So I added those because I really like to color. And so then inside this one is, okay, so paper from the original insert. This is scrapbook paper, blank on one side. This is book paper that I had some ink on, so it was like scrapbook paper. And it was already pretty thick and cottony, but I went ahead and glued it together and stitched around the side. This was some of the paper from the original notebook, but notice it bleeded through, it bled through. So that was like a test to see how I felt about this paper, and so I didn't like it. So that's kind of what led me into using my own paper. This is just a page that came from a Flow for Paper Lovers magazine that I got a couple of years ago. And I love just the paper. I think this was to make one of those little, oh, I can't think of it. My kids make them at school where they go in and out and whatever. So this was a pattern to make one of those, but I'm not making any of those, so I put it in the journal. This is a nice piece of cardstock. This is a little notebook paper from, so I like to, okay, so I'll show you where I got this. So I like to find these little notebooks at thrift stores or at discount stores, and I love them not to use as a notebook, but I love them for the paper. So I got a whole pack of these, and they're very, very pretty. I actually used the covers, and I put them through my die cut machine, and I made some die cuts with them. So I try not to make, let anything go to waste. But then I rip out the stitching and then take the page out that's, the double page, and then I can slip it into my notebooks. And so it just becomes, see, there it is right there. So I just slide it in here and that just becomes an extra little piece of paper. Now, it's not the best quality paper. I think actually this came from Moleskine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Moleskine notebook, but basically I did the same thing. This one's a little bit thinner paper, but still it just adds a little bit of variety. Original page from the notebook, a really pretty page from a fairy tale book, I think, and it's nice and thick, and I loved the brown and white illustrations. This is a scrapbook paper that I turned into a pocket. This is some graph paper I got from an estate sale. Oh my gosh, probably 2 or 3 years, and I've been hoarding it. It came in green and I was able to get it in orange, and I love it, love it, love it. But it's really thin, so I covered it with some pretty wrapping paper. So then here's the back side of the paper, or the other sides of all the papers. This paper beat was a little short for what I wanted, so I just took a random piece of paper from my stash and added a little piece, like a little panel here, and I sewed it in. This scrapbook paper was just a fold out, so I don't know, I may make this into a pocket, or I may, I don't know, I'll figure something out with that. And then the last page, and then here's the back cover. So this one I have ready to stitch. I pulled all the papers yesterday. So the only thing I'm missing is the cover, and I'll probably just do the same thing I did here. I'll probably just take a piece of cardstock, cut it down, and then add a piece of my artwork over it. And then here are the pages inside. And I quickly figured out that I did not want more than 10 pages. I just don't want that bulk. I don't want my spine to split. I don't want it to be cumbersome when I'm trying to write. So I keep it to 10 pages, and I actually think on this one I went to 11. So this was a page from a storybook, nice and thick. This is a page of the little mini notepads. This was a cool piece of paper that I got from a book that I am currently working on turning into a journal. So I deconstructed, took the text block out, and one of the reasons why I bought this book was because the end papers were beautiful. So here's one side of the end paper, and I took this one from this side, and it's nice and thick. Turned it into, oh no, I didn't turn it into a pocket. I just closed that down so it's really thick over here. So I like glued it there. And so this is going in my journal. This is, I'm obsessed with vintage office supplies. So this is comes from a stack of, oh my gosh, like it has to do with like accounting or banks or financial something and others, but I got a whole stack of it. It's nice and thick. It's got lots of lines and grids, and then I'm going to sew this up and turn it into pockets. This is a brochure from my absolute favorite pizza place here in Kansas City. My husband and I are pizza aficionados, and so we have actually ranked our pizza places. Like we have our top 3, and this is our number 1. So because I love this place so much and we eat there so much, the last time we were there, I picked this up and thought, okay, this would be great to put in my traveler's notebook. So because it's already folded, all I'm going to do is just stitch it right in there. Vintage tablet paper, I have a lot of this. Some of it's really, really thin. This was a little bit thicker, but what I did was I just glued it and then put 2 pieces together. So I will go through with my machine and I'll stitch around the sides. And then I just played around with a little bit of ink. It had been a while since I'd used some of my spray mists, so I just added some circles. Map paper. This isn't a vintage map, but I loved the colors that it had on it, and because this is pretty thin, I will probably back this with another piece of paper. This is a page that came from that book, the Creative Needlework book, and I loved the lettering, so I pulled that out. Again, this is pretty thin, so I'll probably back it with something else. This is a file folder. This is one of those hanging file folders, and I just cut it down. It was falling apart. I'm a teacher, so file folders are like all over the place, especially ones that are being recycled or ones that are ready to be thrown away because they've got stuff written on them. So I always try to dig those out of the trash and find something to do with them. So that'll go in. That's nice and thick. I can add some paint to that. This is a page from a storybook. I just cut it down. It's got a little torn edge, which is kind of cool. This is a page from a journal that my husband had gotten me, I don't know, a couple of Christmases ago, and the journal just wasn't my style, so I deconstructed it, and this is kind of a cool paper. It's got little fibers and stuff in it. It's pretty smooth, so I don't know. We'll see what ends up with with that paper. I don't know if I'll put ink on it or watercolor. And then this is a page from a bird book, and it wasn't going to be wide enough. So I took another page and just glued it here, and I'll probably go through and stitch with my machine. And I want this to be the center because I like how when you open it up, you would see the full page. So that's kind of cool. So this is the next insert that I'm getting ready to make. And those are the papers that I'm going to use. If you guys have any questions or comments or suggestions, just leave them in the comments below. And I appreciate you guys watching, and have a great, great day. Bye.